Good morning and welcome, whether you're in this room or someplace far from us. You are still very near. And on this beautiful, soft morning, the light was so beautiful today, I invite you to take that light within so that you can be reminded that that is our inherent divinity. I know there is an incredible life force, Father, Mother, Spirit, God, the isness, the allness, the order behind the cosmos. I know this life force to be all providing, all sustaining, and all renewing. And I rejoice at this knowledge. And this morning we give grateful thanks for everybody who has helped to make this morning, this day, and this community possible. We give special thanks for Rabbi Robbie, who is joining us this morning with words and song, with Reverend John, and with R.L. We give thanks for knowing the truths which carry us through the turmoil. It is our divinity, it is our inherent good, it is who we are. And together we say, and so it is. Many of us are very fortunate to be involved in Sun Valley Writers Conference, whether we are workers, donors, attendees, or enjoy listening or watching online. I promise my message is not a public service announcement for the conference, but yesterday I sat in silence for an hour to listen to a talk found on the conference website. The talk, entitled Life and Literature in the Shadow of War, was recorded in 2011 and featured David Grossman, one of Israel's most acclaimed writers. Mr. Grossman's highly praised book, To the End of the Land, was published the prior year, a novel that depicted the strain on family members when their loved ones are sent to combat. It had been largely completed when his younger son was killed at war. I remembered Mr. Grossman standing in the pavilion just up the road, talking about what it was like to be in Sun Valley. And as I listened yesterday, his words came back with such power and presence. He referred to our valley as a dreamlike place, saying that when he and his wife walked in such a place as ours, the way they walked was completely different. And he explained, I breathe with both lungs suddenly. He explained how this is a metaphor for their life in Israel, the way they live with constant threats from war, terror, and borders that move, as he said, like a home where old walls are mobile and you don't know where you end. He reminded us that although Israel has the potential to be his dream place, like Sun Valley may be ours, life is constantly at stake, and the word future is a dubious word. Mr. Grossman also talked about the word shalom, Hebrew for peace. And he explained that in his viewpoint, shalom is most often used in the future tense. He tied that back to his dream for Israel and for himself. He said he would like to experience just once in his life the feeling that he is at peace, at home. He urged us to insist on the reality of peace, even when situations are despairing. He asked us to imagine a time when people look at the story, the tragedy from both sides, looking at themselves through the eyes of their enemy. He reminded us that life is more than surviving catastrophe after catastrophe, that there is an alternative, and that is imagining shalom in the present tense. Perhaps then, a lesson from Mr. Grossman's talk 11 years ago is to live and breathe and imagine shalom in the present tense, in our lives, our spiritual practices, our actions, and in our prayers. For if prayers can move mountains, holding shalom in our hearts in the present tense, just maybe will help our world right itself so others can experience for themselves every hour of every day in the home they love, their own personal dream place, the feeling of shalom. And so it is. And now, the affirmation for March, which is found on your insert in red. Please join me in reading it. I answer yes to the deeper callings of my soul, which brings forth a clearer direction, purpose, and understanding.
Thank you. Thank you, RL. Well, I have the pleasure of being a guest today, to be able to come, and I'll introduce you to Rabbi Robbie in a moment. First of all, thank you, Marcia. You gave me so much. I think for the next week I've got enough rambling around from what you had to say that if I was speaking today, I probably would completely have changed course and went somewhere else with it. So thank you. So it is my pleasure to tell you a little bit about Rabbi Cantor Robbi Sherwin. Did I get that correct? And what I didn't know, because I wasn't raised Jewish, is that being a cantor is a distinction of its own, and it is an ordained position. So it's a pretty big deal to have both. It's like being a cantor is way enough, and being a rabbi is way enough, but to do both, I'm surprised you're not 80 years old at this point, because I just can't even imagine what it took to do that. There is a very detailed bio of Rabbi Robbie on the website, which I will not read to you, but there are a couple things I do want to point out to you. As I said last week, and kind of vamping up, she's also nationally within Jewish circles, a rock star as well. Let me just read this. It says, she is 1/3 of the touring award-winning Jewish folk rock band, Sababa. She has written 100 Jewish songs that are known for their accessibility, energy, and memorable melodies. Her music has been included in numerous publications. So just know that, what else does she not do? I mean, it's just I think I need to go find some new vocations or something. I don't have nearly enough on my resume. But I just want to close with just one paragraph from her bio that I think is so wonderful, and it says so much about her and someone who I consider a personal friend, who I just look forward to seeing so much. I mean, she's just about 5 years here with the Wood River Jewish community, and she commutes. So she's here, and then she's not, and then she's here, and then she's not. So anyways, it says, with such a diverse background, building, help me with this word, Kahila? Thank you. Community is Rabbi Robbie's goal, be it through social action, food, and music, her love of Israel, prayer, Torah, cultural experiences, or newer contemporary themes. As a sought-after scholar, artist, and resident, she helps communities find their own voices and deep connections to Judaism. In her extensive interfaith work, she is jazzed to partner with build something holy and fun with her colleagues in the Wood River Valley. Hers is a big tent Jewish philosophy. The flaps are open wide, and everyone is welcome. She is happy to meet you wherever you are or are not. So that's why we love her so much. So I get to just sit down and enjoy, and Rabbi Robbie, you're on.
That was a great introduction. Thank you. I'm still actually pretty tearful from you. I mean, hope I can do this. I'll try and do a little transition because I'm about to do something really fun and silly and energetic, and I'm still literally, can you see the tears in my eyes? So beautiful. I'm wearing was my grandmother's pin. My grandmother was from Kyiv. And her entire family was shipped to Poland. They ran from the Nazis, and then they were all killed in Poland, but my grandmother was not. And this was her pin, and this is actually a sunflower, which is the national flower of Ukraine. And I want to encourage you, as I did on Friday night, everybody out there in the interwebs, Friday night for our services, that it's not Kiev, it's Kyiv. Kiev is the Soviet spelling and the Soviet pronunciation, and we need to recognize and honor Ukrainian pronunciations and Ukrainian spelling. So try your best. We all learned Kiev, and I thought that my family was from Kiev, right? So we're all working on trying to make our language match what our hearts and our souls are telling us, is that we need to be respectful and embrace the words and the spellings of the country that we are supporting and loving in our hearts and hopefully in our pocketbooks and all the other ways. So, all right, so I just needed a little transition moment because I was I'm still pretty emotional. I'm his favorite rabbi, so
It's true.
You tell all the rabbis.
Another one, 3 years.
So please forgive my very casual clothing today. This is actually the holiday of Purim. We're going to be talking about Passover, but Purim is the holiday where Queen Esther of Persia saved the Jewish people, and all I have is costumes. I don't have like fancy clothes, so this is me, and this is me all the time with my grandmother's pin. So we're going to talk about Passover, but I need some help because we're going to do Jeopardy today. That's right, Jeopardy. I need 6 volunteers to come hold signs for me. I have 6 volunteers. Let's just line up right here. Just come on up. You're just going to hold signs. I'm not going to make you do anything other than that.
There's 3, there's 4.
D, 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 D. Everybody. D, 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 D. D, 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 D. I think you have 2. Nope. D, 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 D. Please get in order. D, 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 D. D, 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 D. D, 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 D. D, I need one more 50. D, 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 boom, boom. Okay, very good. That was just enough time for us to do this. So welcome to Jeopardy. So you're 50, so you have to be in order, in numerical order. I'm going to come over here. I have to be over here. I hate to be in front of these lovely volunteers. So the category is Passover. I need a contestant. Do I have a contestant? The category, Passover. No. No. Anyone like to be our contestant?
No.
That's okay. We're just going to ask the questions, and then you're going to give the answers. So. Oh, you're all terrified. Okay, John. Oh, come on in. Okay. So this is it's like, that's actually a name of a rock, a description of rock. There's like punk rock and there's, all sorts of rock. Shoegazer rock is actually the name of a new style of music. And I know that because my son is in a shoegazer rock band. So hi, Ann. I'm just going to tell you that you asked for, I'd like to take Passover for 10. So you just say Passover for 10.
Passover for 10.
Passover for 10. And the answer is unleavened bread.
Ooh.
You have to answer in the form of a question. Because Jews ask a lot of questions. We're allowed to ask questions. We're allowed to argue with God. We're allowed to argue with the rabbis. Trust me, they take advantage of that a lot. We're allowed to argue with each other. We don't have any kind of doctrine that says you must do something this way. So, unleavened bread. What's the name of unleavened bread? You guys know what it is. I know you know. Okay. It can't be Scott. He's Jewish. No. What is matzah? That's correct. So unleavened bread, matzah, was the bread that the Israelites had to carry on their backs because they had to leave very quickly from Egypt and they didn't have time for their dough to rise. So that's what unleavened bread is. It's called matzah, and that's what it is. So matzah, very good. RL, you're very good. Nice job. Ann, would you ask for the next question, please? You'll take Passover for
Pick a number.
for 20, Passover for 20. And the answer is Hebrew for Passover. You guys call it Passover, but we have another word for it. Hebrew for Passover. And do you know this? What is Pesach? Pesach comes from the Hebrew word Pesach, which means to pass over. It comes from the angel of death that came for the 10th plague. There were 10 plagues that God sent to the Egyptian people. And the last plague was the killing of the firstborn. Really awful. Firstborn ox and firstborn lamb and firstborn child. So all of the firstborn. Pharaoh would not let the people go. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. So it wasn't like Pharaoh said, well, okay, I don't like this darkness, and I don't like these lice, and I don't like... Can you name some of the other plagues? What are some of the other plagues? I mentioned, what? Locusts. Frogs. Very good. Who said frogs? Nice job. Frogs. Boils. Very good. Any others you can think of? Blood. The rivers turned to blood. Okay, so every time something bad happened, the rivers turned to blood, and Moses and Aaron spoke for Moses because Moses had a speech impediment. So Moses couldn't really speak very well. So Aaron, his brother, who became the high priest, he spoke, and he said, let my people go. And God apparently hardened Pharaoh's heart. I think there's lots of discussion as to why God would cause Pharaoh to say, no, I'm not going to let you go. Very good. Hebrew for Passover, the word is Pesach, comes from Pesach, which means to pass over. The angel of death passed over the houses of the Israelites because the Israelites had lamb's blood on their lintels, on their doorposts, and the angel of death knew to pass over. That's where the word comes from. Anne?
Passover 30?
Passover for 30. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you. Okay. And the answer is, and someone besides Ariel or Scott can answer this one. I bet you can. The Passover meal is called this.
Seder.
What is Seder? The word Seder means order because everything is done in a specific order, starting with the little things that you eat and the little things you dip. You dip things in salt water to remind you of the tears of the Israelites, of the slaves. There are all sorts of really fantastic, traditional, very meaningful foods, but it's done in a particular order. So the word is Seder, which means order. A prayer book in Hebrew is called a Siddur because the prayers are in a particular order. Hebrew is actually a pretty easy language. I mean, you look at the symbols and you go, what? But it's done with roots and prefixes and suffixes. So, for example, the word shalom means peace, but the word shalem, from the exact same root, with just little different vowels, means wholeness, because we can't be whole without peace. All right, Anne.
Oh, Passover 40.
Passover for 40. And the answer is, oh, I just gave away this answer. So any of you can answer this. Please raise your hand. This kept away the angel of death. Yes.
The lamb's blood over the door.
Would you please answer in the form of a question?
What is the lamb's blood over the door?
That is correct. So, lamb's blood over the door. Thank you very much. I already explained that, so what the lamb's blood was. Very good. Anne?
Oh, Passover for 50.
Passover for 50. There's two 50s, because there's just so many things. The river the Israelites crossed into freedom. Hey, raise your hand. Answer in the form of a question. Yep.
What is River Jordan?
That is not correct. Mm-mm. But it's a good river. It's a great river, not the one they crossed. That's okay. Ooh. Incorrect. It was not the Nile. It was a sea. It was known as a sea. Okay. Okay, all right, sorry. The sea that the Israelites crossed into freedom. And, okay, what did you call it? This is why it's a trick question. So, and not to be too didactic about this, when King James took the Hebrew Bible written in Hebrew that had already existed for thousands of years, King James changed a lot of things. Some of the like, for example, the Ten Commandments were reversed and one was taken out. So the other thing that King James changed was the name of the sea. It was the Reed Sea. It was always the Reed Sea, and in Hebrew it says it's the Reed Sea. But it was changed to the Red Sea. There was all sorts of discussion. I wasn't there. When King James interpreted the Hebrew scriptures, and scripture is also, it's actually a Christian word as well. So the Torah, which is the law, and that some of the things that were changed to portend the coming of Christ, right? that's not anywhere in our Torah. But it was changed. They were forming a new religion, and so some of Isaiah's words and even the Ten Commandments. You want to know which one they took out? You shall have no other gods before me, because you don't want to recognize that there might be other gods. And then two of the commandments were switched. 8 and 7 were switched. So when it was reinterpreted to be able to bring people into a new faith, Christianity. So it's the Reed Sea. It was never the Red Sea. It's the Reed Sea. That's why it's a trick question. And our last, okay, another Passover for 50. Okay, this is really hard. So Scott, you can answer this maybe. The Greek word for dessert this is hidden at the end of the Passover Seder or meal. Oh, RL knows it. That's okay, Scott. It's nothing to be ashamed of. RL's going to get it. You know it?
Afikomen.
Please,
What is an Afikomen?
Afikomen. Afikomen is a Greek word. We have many, many, many. Thank you very much. And you knew that too? Excellent.
Can I tell you why? To tell you
Yes.
why, then I'll tell you why. No, so I was in my 20s adopted by this lovely Jewish family, and I spent many Jewish celebrations together. And the first time that I was there and they were hiding the Afikomen, I had maybe a little more than I should have of the celebratory wine, and I thought they were hiding the Afikomen.
Can I use that?
It's yours.
It's fantastic. So during the beginning of the Seder, there's 3 pieces of matzah, and they don't represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Just saying. And you break the middle piece of matzah, and then you hide it, and it's called the Afikomen, which means dessert. And the Afikomen has to be found. And so in some families, the kids go and find the Afikomen, and they bring it back to the leaders of the Seder. It's a very long meal, and so it's hidden, somewhere in there. The kids are falling asleep anyway, and so they find the Afikomen, they bring the Afikomen, and maybe they'll get a silver dollar, or they'll get a prize or a treasure, or they will bargain. With it, every family has a different thing, and so the last thing that you taste is a piece of matzah. That's your dessert. To remind yourselves that it's called the bread of affliction, and it's a bread of affliction for many reasons, some of which are, in your gut. Just saying, all right. But it's the bread of affliction because it was the bread of slaves as they were running. So that's the Afikomen. That's a very hard one. Please thank our fabulous. Thank you. So before we sing a couple of songs, one will be familiar to you, and the other, if you've ever been to a Passover Seder, will be familiar to you because this song never leaves. It's the song that never ends. I want to know if you guys have any questions about Passover, but I'm going to ask you a question. Did Jesus Christ celebrate a Passover Seder at the Last Supper?
Yes. Probably.
The answer is no, because the Passover Seder that we know today was codified hundreds of years after his death. So for churches that choose to have a Passover Seder and turn it into a Christian celebration, that is absolutely, of course, you can do whatever is in your heart and however you connect to your faith, but it's not, Jesus didn't do that. So Jesus may have, I wasn't there, Jesus may have broken bread and said, this is my body, and Jesus may have had some wine and said, this is my blood. That is not Passover. That is maybe acknowledging the 2 things that are in Passover, and the bread that Jesus broke wasn't matzah. I wasn't there, but according to Da Vinci, it looked like it was a soft bread, so it may have risen. You're not allowed to let the matzah rise at all. If you make it yourself, you have to make sure that it doesn't rise. It can only cook for 18 minutes or less, so it doesn't rise, and you have to take you can take a fork or a knife and make sure there's no bubbles, it's not rising. So many times I've been asked to do a Seder at a church, to lead a Seder, and it's not our tradition. It's not the original intent behind the Passover Seder. And again, there's nothing wrong with it, but don't assume that if you are so lucky that you get invited to a church Seder, that's what the Jews do. It's not, right? So, and that's okay. Again, whatever connects you to the divine, whatever connects you to your heritage or your faith, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not what Jesus did. right? Because Passover itself was not codified until hundreds of years later. So I thought that was an interesting fact, that there are lots of places that do Seders, and they really want to connect, and that's beautiful, but not Jewish, right? Questions, and then we're going to sing a little bit. Any questions at all? You can throw anything at me. I'm one of those people that will never be offended. And if I am, I won't tell you. No, I'm kidding. Yes?
What makes a person Jewish? Is it a bloodline or is it just a religion?
Whoa, a bloodline or a religion? That's a really excellent question. What's your name?
Barb.
Hi, Barb. I'm Robbie. According to tradition, if you're born of a Jewish mother, then you're considered Jewish, right? Nowadays, patrilineal descent is also accepted in more liberal streams of Judaism. If you're born to a Jewish father, you're considered automatically Jewish. You know, sometimes people ask that question, and I say, well, if Hitler was to come back, it doesn't matter if it's a bloodline or doesn't matter. Judaism is a faith, a heritage. It is not a race, but it was considered a race by Hitler, right, and by white supremacists all over. It's a racial thing. It's not. There are Indian Jews and South African Jews and black Jews and brown Jews and, Asian Jews everywhere. It's because it's a faith practice, it's a heritage, it's a religion, it's a culture more than anything else. It's a culture. Does that answer your question? Bloodline is, if you're born of, when you're a fetus, you have your mother's blood, so you're considered Jewish. Right? So bloodline, I don't quite know what you mean by that, but there's so many definitions of what makes somebody Jew. People convert into Judaism all the time. It's quite a thing you have to do. You study for years. It's not just you become baptized. We don't do that, right? That's not our thing. But it's not just a faith expression where you say, I now feel as though I am Jewish. You have to go through a course of study. You have to appear before 3 rabbis. You have to be circumcised if you're not already, if you're male. So anyway, so yeah, there's more to it than that. Does that answer the question or no?
It does. I'm just trying to understand why there's so much anti-Semitism.
Really, I am too. No joke. I am too. The Anti-Defamation League, which is an organization that works with all different kinds of marginalized peoples, right, and any faith, any race, the Anti-Defamation League has several categories of why people hate Jews. Do you want to hear them? Or do you want to go back to Passover?
Let's hear them.
Okay, let's hear them. Okay. I could be here for hours. You just do this.
I've got a button to travel. Jews
were, throughout our history, have been kicked out of every possible country. And we were not allowed to own land or businesses in many of those countries. So Jews are highly educated because they can't take this away from us. Education and family are extremely important in Judaism. And we did things with our hands, like jewelry making or tailoring, anything that we could sew into our coats to escape whoever was kicking us out of whatever country. People feel, so that's one thing, is that we're super educated, and because that is one thing that cannot be taken away, right? You can't take away what's here. That's why it's so important. People blame Jews for the death of Christ, which, as we know, and again, we weren't there, but as we know, was not the Jews that killed Christ. And they think that Jews own Hollywood and the banks and all sorts of things, none of which is true. So when people talk about globalists, there are globalists that are taking over the world, and you've heard it through the white supremacists, they're talking about Jews specifically. So those are just some of the reasons why anti-Semitism exists. We're different. In Judaism, we don't believe that if you don't believe the way we do, you're going to go to some place we don't believe in. We don't believe in hell, by the way. So when you say, aren't you afraid you're going to hell? I'm like, no, I don't believe in that. It's not part of our faith tradition. So people don't like us because we're different. And we consider ourselves that we need to be partners with everyone, with God as well, in making this world a better place. The chosenness issue is also an issue, and we believe that we have chosen God's laws. We're not, you're my people. We only love you, the Jews, says God. That's not what chosenness is. Chosenness is choosing to live in dignity and to treat everyone with dignity and with respect, and that everyone is a child of God, and we're not better than anyone else, but we have responsibilities to make sure that we have a better world. And that's what the chosenness is all about. That's another reason why people hate Jews, because they don't interpret chosen correctly, right? So there's so much more I could say. Judaism 101, standing on one foot. But any other questions? So those are some of the reasons why people hate Jews, and that's why there's anti-Semitism. It's based on ignorance, because they don't know who we are. We're just like you. We want our children to be successful, and we want a roof above our heads, and we want the world to be at peace, just like you do. There's nothing different. We just have a different way of celebrating holidays. We have different holidays. Yes?
Did you say Jews were not allowed to own or to have a land?
They are here, but in every country we've been kicked out of, Jews weren't allowed to own land. They weren't allowed to have businesses. They were only
When did that start?
thousands of years ago. Yeah. Let's think about the Inquisition, for example. You guys celebrate Columbus Day. It's a day of mourning for Jews, because that was the day based when the King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella and Columbus, who, by the way, had a Jewish navigator, I think, and he had Jewish roots as well, were told, convert or die. And hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed. Then the Crusade, I mean, there's like, it's a big deal. So it started a long time ago, and unfortunately it has reared its very ugly head, especially in the last 5 years or so, 5-6 years. It's been really, really bad. Hate crimes in the United States alone, this is without world hate crimes. What do you think the percentage of Jews are in the United States? What do you think the percentage is? You don't get to answer. What is the percentage of Jews in the United States? What do you think?
Less than 1%.
2%. 60% of reported hate crimes happen against Jews. That's the reported ones. We don't often report things for lots of reasons. So, any more questions about Passover? And then RL and I have some fun stuff we want to do for you. Yes?
So, why do you think that the dessert at the end of the meal is kind of this, instead of a celebration or something, it goes back to, let's remember, like the slave bread, whatever.
Right.
It seems to be like, oh.
The Afikomen, the dessert at the end of the meal, reminds us that we were once slaves and now we are free. And Passover, the holiday, we have many festivals. Passover is an amazing festival, because the entire Exodus story reminds us that we should never treat anyone as a slave ever again, because we were slaves in Egypt. We will never treat anyone else like that. And so all of Judaism is based on that, being respectful. And, you guys call the golden rule, or not you guys, but people who are not Jewish called it the golden rule. Everybody came up with it, but our sage Hillel said that what is heinous to you, that's not the right word, do not do to another person, right? So do unto others. It was just a little bit different, but it's basically the same thing. So we eat the Afikomen at the end of the meal to remind ourselves never to treat anyone like a slave again.
Thank you for Jeopardy. Now, I just thought we are taking a step towards normalcy when Tom has to have the parking lot discussion. We haven't had to have the parking lot discussion in quite some time, so you can no longer like pull in the lot and leave your motor running and come in here for a while. I mean, it worked for a couple years, but I guess we just can't do that anymore. And the snow is melting. It was like even this year we didn't have actual snow removal for 2 years because who was here? But it's a new world again. So here we are. I think that's exciting. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and just to remind you again, there is a sign-up sheet for my class in the sanctuary, in the foyer, but I think it's going to be a hybrid. I think it will be open to Zoom as well. So it's a little bit to manage, but we'll have some of you looking like Jeopardy on up there, or the Brady Bunch, and the rest of us here. And I know for a couple of you have told me that like maybe 2 of the classes you'll be out of town, you'll be able to Zoom in for that particular. So that's the new reality we are in now. I think if you want to know anything about technology, who knows? Rabbi Robbie. She knows everything. She can tell you, like, from what she's had to learn, and then like stuff that I don't even get to know. So it's just a new reality of being a clergy person. You just have to be a technoid. So Zoom, in person, hybrid, it'll all be available, and it's a great and amazing class. So thank you, Rabbi Robbie. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, RL. Thank you all at home. And there's nothing left to say, but be well, be whole, and namaste. Have a good day.